Welcome to my presentation on the definitions of frontiers by David Weber and Andreas Resendez. In this presentation, we will explore how these two scholars conceptualize frontiers and the implications of their definitions. We will analyze specific examples from Resendez's book, The Other Slavery, to highlight his perspectives and compare it to Weber's definition outlined in the Spanish frontier in North America. Specifically, we will examine the interactions between the invaded and the invaders by looking in the indigenous resistance displayed in Pueblo Revolt, as well as the exploitation of invader in the interaction with Mormon settlers. Despite their differing emphases, I contend that both authors ultimately agree on the fundamental definition of the frontier. Before delving into examples provided by Resendez, let's first establish David Weber's perspective on frontiers, as outlined in The Spanish Frontier in North America. Weber focuses on the dynamic interplay between different cultures and the physical environments in the defining frontiers. He examines how these interactions shape the development of societies and influence historical narratives. Weber's framework emphasizes the complexities of culture exchange and adaptation that occur at the frontier. As he succinctly puts it, frontiers are zones where the culture of the invader and of the invaded contend with one another, and with their physical environments to produce a dynamic that is unique to times and place. The quote encapsulates Weber's perspective on frontiers as a dynamic space shaped by interactions between different cultures and their environments. He argues that these interactions give rise to unique social structures and identities, reflecting the complex interplay between invaders and the invaded and their physical surrounding. By the study of these dynamics, Weber seeks to uncover the underlying mechanisms driving historical change and transformation at the frontier. Weber's perspective offers valuable insight into the fluid and dynamic nature of frontiers by focusing on the interactions between different cultures and their environment. He highlights the reciprocal influences that shape the trajectory of frontier societies. This approach allows for nuanced understanding of historical processes and the emergence of hybrid identities at the frontier. Now let's turn our attention to Andreas Resendez's perspective on frontiers, as elucidated in The Other Slavery. Resendez expands the definition of frontiers to encompass not only the cultural dynamics, but also the exploitation and enslavement of indigenous peoples by European invaders. Resendez's framework highlights the asymmetrical power dynamics inherent in colonial encounters. He argues that frontiers are sites of exploitation and violence, where indigenous communities often suffer at the hands of European settlers. Through case studies such as the Mormon colonization of Utah, Resendez illustrates how indigenous peoples were marginalized and their labor exploited for the benefit of colonial powers. However, once Young gained more confidence and understood the Indian slave trade had existed in the region for centuries and was deeply rooted, he changed his mind. Resendez 269. Resendez's perspective sheds light on the darker aspects of frontier expansion, emphasizing the systemic exploitation and enslavement of indigenous peoples by centering the experiences on the marginalized and oppressed. He challenges traditional narratives of frontier conquest and settlement, highlighting the human cost of colonialism. Now let us delve into another compelling example of indigenous resistance against European invaders, the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. This pivotal event, as highlighted by Resendez, stands as a testament to the agency and the resilience of indigenous peoples in the face of colonial oppression. The Pueblo Revolt erupted in response to decades of Spanish colonization and the imposition of religious and culture suppression on Pueblo's people of present-day New Mexico. Under Spanish rule, indigenous communities were subjected to forced labor, religious conversion, and culture erasure, leading to widespread discontent and resistance. Led by figures such as Popeye, a Tiwa medicine man from San Juan Pueblo, indigenous communities across the region united in coordinated rebellion against Spanish colonial rule. Through strategic planning and collaboration, indigenous leaders rallied their people to reclaim autonomy over their lands and culture. The Pueblo Revolt achieved remarkable success, resulting in expulsion of Spanish colonizers from the region and the restoration of indigenous autonomy. For over a decade, indigenous communities governed their territories free from Spanish interference, preserving their culture and practices and traditions. The legacy of Pueblo Revolt endures as a symbol of indigenous resistance and resilience against colonial oppression. It serves as a reminder of the power of collective action and the determination of indigenous peoples to defend their lands and cultures and sovereignty. Resendez's analysis of the Pueblo Revolt underscores the significance of indigenous agency and self-determination in shaping their frontier encounters. By resisting Spanish colonization, the Pueblo's people challenged the narrative of European superiority and they assert their rights to exist on their own terms. Over the next few weeks of their journey, the Spaniards got their first look at the devastation in the wake of insurrection. Resendez 163. In the case of the Pueblo Revolt, the invaded were willing to rise up against the invaders in order to preserve their culture. When comparing the Pueblo Revolt to other examples of indigenous resistance, such as the Seminole Warriors or the Apache Resistance, we see parallels in strategies employed and the underlying motivations driving resistance movements across different frontier contexts. In conclusion, the Pueblo Revolt stands as a powerful example of indigenous resistance against European invaders, highlighting the agency and resilience of indigenous peoples in the face of colonial oppression. Through their collective action, the Pueblo communities reclaimed their autonomy and defended their lands and cultures from external domination. Thank you.